What if you've lived this moment before, not just in a dream, but in another life, under another name, wearing another face, breathing in a different body? And what if, after all your lives and deaths, you're still running on a loop, a cycle carefully designed not to free you, but to keep you coming back? Reincarnation? A comforting idea to some, the promise of a second chance. But what if it's more than that? What if the truth behind reincarnation is far more complex, more hidden, and more unsettling than we've been told? Across ancient cultures, from the Vedic texts of India to the Hermetic scrolls of Egypt, whispers of soul cycles echo through time. But what those texts suggest is not just rebirth for evolution. They hint at something else, a mechanism, a trap, a cosmic contract. In this video, we're going to unravel what mainstream spirituality won't tell you. We'll explore the forgotten origins of reincarnation teachings, the metaphysical structure of the soul cycle, and why some mystics believe it's not enlightenment that waits at the end, but another loop. This is not just philosophy, it's a key that could shift your entire perception of life, death, and why you're really here. Ready to step beyond the veil? Long before modern religions rose, the idea of the soul's return was not just a belief, it was a law of nature, encoded into the cosmologies of ancient civilizations. The earliest texts that speak of reincarnation aren't soft metaphors, they're warnings, instructions, maps for escape. In the Upanishads, the mystical heart of Vedic wisdom, the soul is called Atman, and it is said to move through lifetimes like a flame passed from one candle to another. Karma is its weight, Dharma its compass. But even in these sacred writings, there's a deeper layer, hints that the soul's return is not always by choice, but by design. Ancient Egypt carried its own version. The Ba and Ka aspects of the soul were believed to journey through the Duat, a hidden realm between lives. The goal was not just rebirth, it was transcendence. But only those who passed the trials of the underworld could escape the cycle. The rest were recycled, returned to earth, bound by unfinished lessons or unseen forces. In Greece, the Orphic mysteries taught that human souls had fallen from divine origins into the prison of flesh, a punishment, a forgetting. Only through purification and esoteric knowledge could one break free from the wheel of birth. Pythagoras, Plato, and other initiates of the mystery schools spoke of metempsychosis, the transmigration of the soul. But even they hinted at something more sinister. Plato described souls being judged and sorted after death, many condemned to return to earth, blind and burdened by their former choices. So why was this knowledge buried? Why did reincarnation vanish from Christian doctrine, banned by councils and labeled heresy? Perhaps because true spiritual liberation grants autonomy, and institutions depend on control. A soul that knows it can break the cycle becomes dangerous. What we're told today, that reincarnation is merely a learning journey or a comforting path toward growth, may only be part of the truth. The deeper teachings suggest reincarnation is not just an opportunity, it may also be a trap. And this raises a more unsettling question: who or what built the trap? If reincarnation is a cycle, then who or what set it in motion? And more importantly, who benefits from it? Many spiritual traditions speak of the wheel of samsara, a cosmic cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. But few question why this wheel exists in the first place. It is often said that we return because of karma, the unfinished business of our past actions. But ancient mystical teachings suggest that karma may not be the full truth. It may be the lock on the prison door. In Tibetan Buddhism, certain esoteric texts speak of bardo, the intermediate state between lives. It is here, they say, that the soul is deceived. Beings of light appear. Familiar faces call out. A tunnel beckons. The soul, overwhelmed by the illusion, walks forward and is pulled back into another life. The Gnostics, early Christian mystics whose teachings were declared heretical and nearly erased from history, believed that souls were trapped in a material construct, a false reality ruled by archons, powerful entities who feed on human suffering and ignorance. They taught that after death, these archons would attempt to trick the soul into reincarnating, wiping its memory and binding it once more to the cycle. Even modern accounts of near-death experiences hint at something unusual. Many who have glimpsed the other side report being met by a loving presence, a light so overwhelming that it leaves no room for doubt. But what if this light is part of the system? What if, instead of liberation, it is simply the mechanism that recycles the soul back into the loop? The ancient Hermetic axiom states, "As above, so below." If control systems exist in the physical world, is it so far-fetched to consider that they might exist in the spiritual realm as well? If this cycle was designed, if souls are returned not for growth but for energy extraction, then the real question becomes, how do we break free? To escape a system, you first have to see it clearly, and that's where most souls fail. Not from lack of will, but from a lack of memory. Every reincarnation begins with amnesia. You forget who you were, what you learned, and why you came. This isn't a side effect. It's part of the design. Across mystical traditions, there are symbols and teachings that hint at this cosmic forgetting. The ancient Greeks spoke of the river Lethe, the water of oblivion, which every soul was required to drink before returning to earth. In other words, the forgetting was enforced, not natural, not divine, engineered. But if there's a trap, there must also be an exit. Some esoteric teachings describe the soul's escape from the reincarnation cycle not as a reward, but as a rebellion, a refusal to comply with the forces that demand its return. The Gnostics called this gnosis, not belief, but deep inner knowing. A knowledge so complete, so unshakable, that even in death, the soul sees through the illusions. Certain initiates of ancient mystery schools were trained to recognize the signs, to remember themselves in the afterlife, to bypass the false light and ascend beyond the astral recycling centers. In Egypt, this was the purpose of the Book of the Dead, not just a guide to the afterlife, but a coded manual for soul liberation. Some even say that the so-called life review, where you see every act you've ever committed, is not a moral checkpoint, but a harvesting ritual. The emotions you re-experience, the regret, the guilt, the pain, are energetic imprints, food for something unseen, and perhaps this is why ancient knowledge was buried. Because if souls began to awaken before death, if they remembered the rules of the game, they might begin to choose something else. There are even accounts from mystics, shamans, and near-death experiences of souls who refused to enter the tunnel, who turned away from the light, who looked deeper into the void and found a different path, a higher exit, a return not to earth, but to source. But such awareness requires more than curiosity. It requires preparation, in life, not just in death. Because the trap doesn't begin when your heart stops beating. It begins here, now, in how you see yourself, your purpose, and your place in the cosmos. You were never meant to sleep through eternity, but to wake, fully, consciously. You must first remember what you truly are. Not a body, not a role, not even a soul caught in a loop, but something older, freer, and far beyond the wheel. It's one thing to understand the cycle, it's another to prepare yourself to break it. The ancient texts weren't just philosophical, they were instructional. They taught that liberation doesn't begin after death. It begins in how you live, how you see, how you remember. So the question becomes, how can you remember who you are before the forgetting begins? One of the first practices is conscious self-awareness. Not mindfulness in a trendy sense, but a piercing clarity of identity beyond the ego. Begin asking yourself daily, what part of me is observing this thought? What part of me existed before this body had a name? This sharpens what ancient mystics called the witness consciousness, the part of you untouched by emotion, memory, or form. The more you identify with it, the harder it becomes for the cycle to pull you back unconsciously. Second, there's dream work. Dreams are rehearsals for the in-between states. Start keeping a detailed dream journal. Practice lucid dreaming. Train yourself to remain conscious in altered states. If you can stay awake in your dreams, you may be able to stay awake after death. Third, visualization rituals. Ancient initiates used specific symbols and light path meditations to program their consciousness with an exit route. One method: visualize a path leading beyond the tunnel of light. Not into it, beyond it. Imagine a direct line to source, unfiltered by intermediaries, guides, or illusions. You can also speak aloud what you intend. Declare it in ritual form. I will not be deceived by false light. I will not forget who I am. I will return to source by choice, not by force. Fourth, disentangle from karmic hooks. This means closing cycles with people, patterns, and unfinished emotional residue. Karma only binds where attachment lingers. When you clear emotional entanglements, not just forgive, but fully release, you cut the energetic threads that pull you back. And lastly, live with soul integrity. Live as if you're already beyond the cycle, guided not by fear or gain, but by truth. This shapes your energetic imprint. It's not about being perfect. It's about being whole, clean, honest, undivided. Because when the moment of death comes, and it will, your consciousness will gravitate toward what it knows best. If all you've known is distraction, fear, ego, you'll follow that path again. But if you've trained your mind to remain lucid, your soul may finally choose another road. And maybe, for the first time in lifetimes, you won't come back. So what if everything you've been taught about reincarnation was only part of the story? What if the cycle isn't just a spiritual journey, but a system? One that feeds on your forgetfulness, thrives on your return, and depends on you never asking deeper questions. You've now seen glimpses of what lies beneath the surface. The ancient teachings, the hidden warnings, the clues left in forgotten temples and banned texts. Reincarnation may not be a punishment, but it isn't necessarily salvation either. It's a pattern, and patterns can be broken. The soul is not meant to be trapped in loops. It's meant to ascend, to awaken, to return to its true origin, not through blind belief, but through inner mastery. So the next time you find yourself asking why you're here, consider this. Maybe the deeper question isn't why you were born, but whether you'll choose to return again. And if you don't want to, will you be ready? If this video sparked something inside you, a memory, a question, a deeper pull, share your thoughts below. Let's bring this ancient conversation back to life. And if you want more truths like this, you know what to do. Until next time, stay awake.